In this video, we will have a look on different primitives in Blender, and especially on mesh primitives. So we will discover these different objects. So to add an object here, we will use the shortcut Shift-A, like add, or we will use the add menu here, okay? And you can see that you have a lot of different kind of objects that you can add in Blender. The first that we will use and the main that we will use for modeling is mesh, okay? So mesh, you can see that you have a few different objects that are available in Blender. They are called primitives, and it means that you start a modeling project with that. For example, if you model maybe a mug or something like that, you will start by a cylinder, okay? If you model a balloon or something like that, you will start with a sphere, okay? And maybe with a cube, you will make some furniture or things like that. So it will depend on the project you will start for, okay? First of all, let's add a plane, the first one in the list. So here we have the plane, and you can see that when you add an object, you have a little menu that appears here. And inside this menu, you will find different options that are related to the object you just add. Be careful, because when you make another operation, like for example, if I make G to move this object, you can see that the related menu here is from the last operation. So this menu will disappear after. So it's a kind of destructive operation that when you choose an option here, okay? So you can choose here the size by default. With here you can generate UVs or not. We will talk about UVs later, how to manipulate object into a 2D view, but we will talk about it later. And here we have the possibility to align it with the view, so it will be aligned with the view that you have in 3D, or with the 3D cursor, or with the world here. And then after, you have the localization here, the location, and the rotation here that you can change as well, but you can do it after this. So it's only object location and rotation that you can change yourself after. So this is the first object. It's just a surface here, nothing fancy, just something to start for. And with G and X, you can see that I can move my object into the X-axis, and we will talk about this operation later. And so I will introduce you all the meshes like that, okay? And let's go with the next one, is the cube. The cube, as you can see here, you have the size here, so 2 meters by default. You can see that everything is in meter in Blender. We will talk about this later as well. And here we have the same kind of options here. Okay, so another one, GX, we move it there. And now we have something with a little more options. So we have the circle. So the circle, you can make a surface with it by going there and fill here the circle with n-gon. So n-gon is only one face, okay? And you can see in wireframe it doesn't change anything, but if you choose here triangle, you can see that it will make triangle from the number of vertices that you have here. So by default it's 32. It's good to choose an even number with this, because we will always want to model with quads. It means faces that have 4 vertices, and with this it's always good to have an even number here, except specific case. So here we have the number. So if I put 8, I will have an octagon here. If I increase the radius, you can see the result here, okay? And more you add, more you will have something with a perfect circle, okay? By default 32 is good. I like to use 24 and 16 as well, but we will see that during the modeling sessions. So here is the circle, another object that we will use often. Then we have the UV sphere. So UV sphere will add an option. We have the segment numbers here. Okay, you can see the number like that. And you have the ring as well. Okay, so can be very useful as well, the sphere, to create this kind of object with sphere forms. And we have another sphere, is the icosphere. So the icosphere, it's only triangles with subdivisions. You can see that if you increase subdivision, you will have more and more triangles with more perfect shape like that, okay? But with more vertices. To be sure the number, to see the number of vertices that you have in a scene, I like to here enable with the right click here. You can use scene statistics here. You can use scene duration. You can use scene system memory and video memory as well. Like this, maybe the duration will remove it like this. It's not really, it doesn't take a lot of space here. So you can see that you have a few informations that will help you during modeling. Like for example, you have the number of vertices in your scene, the number of faces, of triangles, the number of objects. I have one object selected on 5 objects that are in the scene, and the number of memory usage and the number of video memory usage here. Okay, so we can keep that, and it's always good to have. So now I can move to my next object. The next object is a cylinder here. Okay, so it's the same option with this as the circle, for example, but you will have a radius and a depth. Okay, that you can play with. You can fill with nothing or with triangle or with hang-on. By default, it's hang-on on this object. Okay, so again, another object that is very useful. Okay, the next one here, we have the cone. So the cone is the same, almost the same as the cylinder, but you have 2 radius. You have the radius of the basis and the radius on top here. Okay, so it can be good, for example, to make a lamp shape or something like that. And yeah, or maybe if you have a pipe that's going like that and that is big, and suddenly it goes and it decreases, something like that, you can play with these options as well. Okay, and then you will have the torus. So the torus here, it's really like a donut shape, and you can increase the major segment here, so the number of vertices in that direction, and the number of rings, okay, like this. So you can increase that as well, and you can play with the major, minor here dimension mode. So here you have the dimension here, the major radius, so something like that. Okay, and you have the minor radius here. You see that when I make another action, I cannot come back to these options. So that's why you have to be careful when you add an object. You have to take care of this option before moving or making something else. Okay, so yeah, I come back to these options. You can see that I can increase that or increase that. Okay, you have the major, minor here, or you have the possibility to use exterior and interior radius. So it's the same kind of options, but gives you this kind of behavior like that. Okay, so here you have the generate UVs as well with all objects that you can have, that you can add. Here you have the world, same thing for all these objects. And now we can move on to the next one. The next one is the grid. So by default, it really looks like here the planes, but it's not really a plane. It's a plane that is subdivided. So when you go here into wireframe mode, maybe Okay, you can see the subdivision here, or maybe you can just add the wireframe on top of the solid view here, and you will have the number of subdivisions. So we can add maybe 20 or something like that. So it's very good to use a grid, maybe to start to model a landscape or something like that, and after you will maybe move the vertices up and down to create a kind of landscape shape. Okay, so sometimes you add a lot, like 250 or something like that. Be careful, because it increases the number of vertices a lot, and we always try to keep the number of vertices on our scene as low as possible to be sure to not have too much, and to have good performance on your scene, especially with animation. So here we have the grid. Okay, you can move on to the next object. I really recommend you to make the same as me, to start to model, to move a little the objects, and to use the add menu and everything like that. So yeah, it's very important, yeah, to know a little your gear. So here is Suzanne. Suzanne, I showed you already. So it's a kind of mascot, and we can experiment with this object. So yeah, all Blender users, they know Suzanne because they experiment with it. You can play with shaders, or you can play with everything that you want to experiment. It's kind of interesting shape that shows you the geometry. Like for example, if we go with this, with a modifier generate subdivision here, okay, and increase it like that, we will have some subdivision here. I will just remove the wireframe and make a shade smooth. Like this, we have a kind of more interesting shape than just a ball or something, just to see the shaders or to see the reflections or the lighting. For example, here, if I go to add the shadow like that and increase it, you can see that we have really a more interesting object than just a sphere or something like that. And we can really see more how the light and the shaders will react and interact. Okay, so it's very important to play with Suzanne. We will use this poor monkey a lot. So yeah, I apologize about Suzanne. Yeah, it's poor Suzanne. It will be difficult during this training, but we will use it carefully. And so that's it for the meshes options. Okay, the mesh primitives. We can add some curves as well. You have a lot of different objects here. You can see curves, surfaces, metaball. Some objects will not use it during the training, but you can try to experiment a little with them. And after, we have some more specific objects like the lights, the camera, the speakers, the force fields, and things like that, more for animations. We will discover a lot during the training, all of the specific objects. But mostly for modeling, you will use mesh and curves and text sometimes, and mostly it will be enough like that. So that's it for the mesh primitives, and we will start to make some manipulations with it, how to move them, to rotate them, to scale them with shortcuts, and after we can start to make our first modelings.